we're not. Oh, we are live.
Welcome to another unauthorized and rum-fueled treasure hunt in the sharky waters around the Gatsby waters.
Islands.
With Queen Raae. And I'm your host, Captain Oravea, and today's guest is the great and powerful Pierre the Wolf.
Hi, everyone.
So, Pierre, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Pierre de Wolf. So, I'm from France. I'd say I'm mainly in developers. A few years ago with Kevin, I co-founded ScrapingBee, web scraping API, which we're going to talk more about, I think, in a few minutes. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Join us in our craziness.
Yeah.
Do you have the Tasker bell ready, Ola? Or is the Pirate Princess?
Absolutely, I do.
Absolutely.
What
Somebody's
are we
complaining.
doing?
We are scraping data off of my Crowdcast page because Crowdcast doesn't have an API, something I probably should have checked before using them.
And why?
Because I want to display the webinars that I host onto my Queen page. And I'm a developer like Pierre and like you, and I don't want to copy paste the information for every webinar into my Gatsby site. So we want to, on build, I want to fetch all the information from the Crowdcast profile page and put it into the Gatsby data layer. And then since Ola is occupied with the Pirate Princess, I can read the last one, which is how. And well, you do that using the ScrapingBee API or service.
Yes.
What do you usually call it? Do you just you said API, right? ScrapingBee API?
Yeah.
Or do you say service?
No, it's an API. Let's not pretend it's much more than it. It's an API. It's actually easier to market it as such because our target audience are people who knows what an API is and how to use it. So yeah, that's how we.
And this is the beautiful web page, everyone. So I shared that we were going to do this stream with some people in different Slacks. And one of the comments I got was like, wow, that page, it's slick.
Thank you.
And it's a redesign, right? It hasn't always been like this.
Oh, no, it hasn't always been like this. Yeah, we've redesigned it a few months ago in January, I think. So I did nothing about the design. Like talented illustrator did the main illustration here. A talented designer did everything else. Basically, I just pasted the cut snippet on our CMS. But yeah, I think it looks great.
I mean, it just looks so good. It looks so good. When we actually met, people might not know that, but we actually met and we talked about all the fun merch you could do. I want like the ScrapingBee honey, the ScrapingBee beer, the scraping beer.
The scraping beer. Yeah. That's the next company. That's going to be the next venture. Yeah.
The next venture. Okay, so to give people some more context, so what you want to scrape is this web page here. So this is my Crowdcast profile. I probably should choose a different cover photo. You're like looking at my neck, but and we have these upcoming events, and then there's these past events. And as I said, there is no API, so it would be really nice to kind of scrape this. And ScrapingBee has some really good blog articles about how you can do web scraping without ScrapingBee, which I think is really nice. But this site turned out to be pretty hard because I know you want to curl and stuff, Pierre, but like I've never learned curl, so
yeah.
So we're gonna do it this way instead, where we're gonna try to disable JavaScript and see how this page actually looks like when you disable the JavaScript. So let's disable the JavaScript and refresh. And look at that. This is the page. And I tried to look inside of this kind of, inside of the source code here or whatever, the HTML. And there's like really no information. It's just like a bunch of scripts. Yeah. And then
because
I did.
Sometimes you would have some JSON information in the HTML that is later turned into, you have the raw data and then later it's turned into pretty data. So it's here in the DOM. But apparently here is like, it's actually basically just a body with some scripts. And
yes,
you're supposed to wait for the scripts to load and the JavaScript will do all the magic and load the data from the backend. Yeah.
And look here, we got the checkout script from Stripe already loaded, but no data. I'm gonna do some more. Yeah, and then I tried because in the one of the blog posts I found, like you said you could try. Oh, they're hiring. Crowdcast is hiring.
Good to know.
So you like to code, huh? Maybe I can tell them I want to make an API. Anyway, so I tried to do it just with the node and then the JS DOM package, which was mentioned in one of our blog posts, but like nothing happened, and I was like, I don't want to do this. So we're just gonna go straight to ScrapingBee.
Yeah.
And so what? But why can you scrape this page and I can't scrape this page?
So basically here, so what you're doing here when you disable JavaScript is like you're just doing an HTTP request and you receive some HTML, right? And so actually it's basically the same as if you'd use curl, whatever, or any HTTP client. If you use ScrapingBee, what we're going to do by default is run a real browser, tells the browser, go to this URL, wait a bit, and then returns the HTML. And so that browser will load all the different JavaScript, all the different AJAX call will have time to complete, all the external data will have time to load, and then that's how you can get the full DOM, the full HTML of the website you want to scrape without having to do it yourself. Because you can do it yourself. Like there's tools such as Puppeteer that you can install on your end, which will allows you to basically control a Chrome browser with a code, or Selenium. But it's quite easy to do it for one website. But if you want to do it at scale, like it can be hard because, as everyone knows, Chrome it's lots of RAM, for example. So yeah, as soon as you want to run more than 10 Chrome on parallel, it can be a bit harder to do it yourself.
And something that since you're not a Gatsby person, so this is something you wouldn't know, but I've tried to package Puppeteer with Gatsby before because I wanted to make screenshots, and it turns out that we cannot. So with Gatsby's kind of default setup, you cannot package native binaries, I guess it's called. So if we're going to stay within Gatsby, we cannot package Puppeteer or anything like that ourselves. So that's where a service like yours also can come in. Even though we're not doing this at scale, we still can offload that kind of work.
Because so on Gatsby, you run the JavaScript on their end, right?
Yes.
Like, absolutely. Yeah, because if you want Puppeteer to work, it needs to be loaded with a Chrome binary. So it's hard to make it run on Gatsby. I guess it would be hard to make it run on a REPL.it. All those kind of cloud dev tool would be tricky to.
I think if you use a netlify function out of the box, you can use like an AWS version of it, but then you cannot do that for a Gatsby kind of build that you're then, or a Gatsby site that is then gonna run your builds. But anyway, that was like we're supposed to jump straight to the code. Ulla is very about that. But I wanted to know the answer to all these questions. I hope that has been helpful.
Very good. Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to see how to do it without using any third-party application such as ScrapingBee. And the AWS thing you mentioned is very interesting, and you can find some hack to. So first, you have to have a Chrome binary that runs in the AWS virtual environment, and then you can ship it along Puppeteer. And it's actually, I think, the second best way to do it at scale. Then the first one being, okay, let's say the first one is ScrapingBee, but the second one would be AWS Lambda. That's what I advise. But it can be much more expensive because due to how Lambda are built, it's like CPU and RAM per second. And so you need to have a Lambda with at least 1 gigabyte of RAM.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna sting.
So yeah.
So Kevin here, who's your co-founder, has this great article on how to do web scraping with JavaScript and Node.js, and goes through all the ways that you could do this, and then we'll focus on doing it with ScrapingBee. So you call it data extraction.
Yeah, the feature. Yeah, right? Because it's actually so basically you want to scrape, you get HTML, but no one care about HTML. They want data, they want information. So you have to parse the HTML. And this can also be a pain to do. It's not that hard, but you have to install.
I've been playing with abstract syntax trees lately, so yes, I know.
You have to install a third-party library. You have to load the HTML. You have to run some selectors. Sometimes it's going to be XPath. Sometimes it's going to be CSS Selector. We decided to abstract it, and so we've developed like a JSON format of extraction instruction. And basically, you give us those instructions that use CSS Selector, which is, I think, something most developers are familiar with. And in return, you get a formatted JSON, hopefully, if everything goes well.
If everything goes well. Let's try.
Woohoo!
Yes. Woohoo! So let's turn on JavaScript again so we can see what type of CSS we would like to extract. Because it's always nice to just have, at least when I code, it's nice to just have like a proof of concept thing that we want to do and not try to do everything at once. So I thought, let's start with just like getting this Queen Raae thing out to know that we're getting some data specific to me. So it's called profile name. So I think that's going to be our first kind of use case.
I think you're very lucky here with the DOM structure you got here. Like, oh, you want the profile name? Yeah, just use H1 with profile name class. Yeah. So
yeah, because sometimes
like this example.
So this is obviously not a React application, because then it would be like C what's like these like really weird class names. And no, so no API, but like really good HTML structure for Crowdcast. So we know profile name. So what I always do then, of course, is to just like follow the instructions. So this will always also be a test of your tutorial here. Cross your fingers. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So we're in Node.js land. So let's just, I have access already. So we'll just copy that. So for the people here who are interested in the Gatsby stuff, so where we do this is we're doing it inside of source node. So this is where we source data and turn them into Gatsby data or that Gatsby content nodes. So in the beginning, we'll just run the code to kind of check the ScrapingBee, and then at the end, we'll turn the data we have returned into Gatsby content nodes and call them webinars or something, good like that. But we'll just start with some console logging because that's the way I roll. So I have already had Axios installed. People, friends of the show know I love Axios. And what I really love is that you include the API key in the document, like in the tutorials.
Oh,
this is so I don't have to go and figure out what my API key is. And I did actually check. Yeah, how do you make that happen?
Oh, it's actually so. If you open the documentation on a private browser, like same page on a private browser, the documentation page.
Yeah, there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then we did data extraction, and then I went. Ooh, where did I find that link? There, take me.
Yeah. And so if you try to look, okay. So you see, here it says your API key.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so whenever you log in to your dashboard, we're going to save your API key in the cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And here on the documentation, we have a small JavaScript snippet. We will check that your API key is in the cookie. And if it is, we're just going to replace the your API key string by your actual API key. So it's actually
all APIs need to do this. All APIs need to do this because it's so good. And
yes,
for long-time watchers, I can change this API key because I have been known to lose API keys on this show before. But here I will invalidate it after the show. So no need to try and go and use my API key. Okay. Hopefully nobody sees this right now and like runs up my bill. Anyway. Please don't do that.
I have access to the database that I can, stuff up some credits if we ever need it.
Okay, so we have the API key, and then the URL will then be my crowd. Oh, you guys need to tell me I need to bump up the font.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Is that better? Is that enough?
Yeah.
So what we wanted then is we wanted the profile name. So this is what, and then like I probably don't need these because I know that Axios makes my JSON into strings. So let's remove that. So my prettier spaces it out. And we wanted my name and the class name. I mean, I guess it was an H1, but you never know. Maybe they had more, more ones in there. So profile name.
Yeah.
So name, and then we get a response back, and the response from Axios always has like a data field. So I think we should look at the data field because, and then I like to use the await. So let's do data, not date, and then we do await.
Okay, and so you have to return it at some point, right?
Yeah, and then we console. We actually never return in source nodes. We use some utility functions to create things, but yeah.
Okay.
Await is a new way of you get the instead of whatever you get in the then function, you get returned.
Okay.
So yeah, so data. Okay. Shall we just run? Let's see let's see. We need a waiting song.
Can it take it a little down? Yeah, like that.
Is it true?
I can ask questions.
Yes.
So, how?
Oh no, we're already there. We're already there. Oh my!
I got to say how.
You got to say how, but it says name at, which is kind of it's a part of it. It's like this part.
Yeah, because if you open the H1 on the DOM,
it's in there.
It's weird, like.
But you said something about so you wait. Like, how long do you wait for?
Yeah, I think that's okay. Yeah, we talked about it. So what probably happens here is that the browser on ScrapingBee side, like opens the page and then runs the CSS Selector extraction as soon as possible, And maybe it does it before all the Ajax call are complete. So what you can actually do is tell ScrapingBee, okay, wait for that CSS Selector to be completely loaded. Or you can say, okay, wait for 3 seconds, for example.
So what is the syntax for that? Because that is not, I don't think that's on this page.
No, so you just have to add, it's another parameter. So this is
Okay.
documentation for the data extraction. But
Mm-hmm.
if you go on the main documentation page,
Is this the main?
here,
This would be the main
yeah,
one. Yeah.
exactly. If you scroll down,
Oh, wait.
yeah, exactly. You have wait for, which
I mean, you
will,
always have to check because is it underscore? Is it camel case? Is
yeah, yeah, that's true. So you can use
I guess I could have seen it. So.
wait,
Mhm.
or wait for.
Okay, both are valid.
Mm,
So profile name like that.
yeah, it should work.
Mhm. Okay, start asking the questions right away, Ola, and I will try to run it again.
Okay. So how did you come up with the name?
Oh, that's actually a good question. So at first, ScrapingBee was called Scraping Ninja, but we got sued. We got sued by someone in France who had a business with a very similar name, but it was, yeah. Well, long story short, we had to change the name and had to come up with something quickly. And so I just took a piece of paper, I wrote down 20 names with very bad names like Scraping Genius, The Under Scraper, Scraping Bull, or things like that. And we just realized that ScrapingBee was the less worse of all the name I could come up with in a few minutes. And yeah, that's how we
Question from the pirate princess here. She wants to see the bee.
The bee. Yeah, so we're going.
Can we see it now? Benedicte can just put it up.
The bee.
The bee.
It's yeah, that's here. Yeah.
You know, it looks a little bit like the robot that Lillian built with Benedicte here. It's not exactly the same.
Oh, they're definitely cousin. Yeah, it's a cousin. Yeah, definitely.
Han sier at de er fettere. De er fettere. Hvem? Tobby?
Men hvem er han fettere med?
But you were actually sued by some real ninjas?
Yeah. No, yes. We didn't get sued, but yeah, someone was not happy about our business name. And
they were ninjas?
They were having a business called Scraping Ninja. It was scrapy.ninja, I think.
But were they actual ninjas though? Or
you can never know, because actual ninjas, they wouldn't tell you they are. So
yes.
Ooh, story time is over. We got it.
It worked.
Look at that.
Okay.
Name Queen Raae at Raae. So that it took everything that was inside of that H1.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just like, how easy was that? That's all I gotta say. That was super easy. My little foray into trying to do this myself. I was like, this is pretty awesome. So, but we're not interested though in my name. We're actually interested in like all of these things.
Yeah.
So I guess,
which is actually pretty classic. Usually you want a list of things from a page.
Yeah.
We have a question also. Does it keep the styling?
So that's a good question, and there's not really styling to keep if you think about it, because what is styling? It's just CSS, which is going to be interpreted by your brother, and which are going to make that font bigger, white, yellow, black, whatever. So there's no style that needs to be kept, because we are only interested in the data, in the DOM, in the HTML. But with ScrapingBee, you can do screenshots. And of course, if you're going to do screenshots, the CSS are going to be kept, loaded, and interpreted by the browser. So everything should look the same as on your Chrome.
You're saying for data extraction, there's no need to keep the styling, but
Yeah.
for screenshots, you do keep the styling.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Oh,
the styling is here. It's in the DOM, but
yeah.
Maybe better term would be children nodes on the DOM.
better term for what?
I think the question is if we fetch one of these kind of DOM nodes, could we get kind of the children?
Yeah.
So would you keep
can
that
get
kind of?
Yeah. Okay, I see. Can we get the whole the raw HTML? So if that is a question, you can. So by default, we're only going to extract the text of the DOM. But if you want all the HTML and if you want all the raw thing, you can. It's just an option on the data extraction rules.
Because now while you guys were talking, I went to the documentation and I had a look at how to get a list, because then I saw here single element or list. So now I want to do list. So instead of doing this nice, just kind of a key and then what I want that key to be filled with, I can make an object here. So selector post title and then type list. This will give us all of the post titles, I guess, for this example. And then this will give us the first post title.
And to be honest, I think it was bad design here on the documentation. Like, if I had to do it again, I think by default, everything would be type list. And if you have only one element, it would be just an array with one element. You know what I mean? Because here, if you doesn't enable the type list thing, you get a single element. If you do enable it, you get a list of several elements. But it would have been probably easier and clearer to have, like, every time you get a list, you only want the first thing. But yeah, I digress. But that's
So look at that. All webinars.
Wow.
5 Gatsby Gatsby, testing your Gatsby serverless function, get paid through blah, 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 blah. And then I think I found this part, because that's what you said. You could do text or HTML.
Yeah, so that's the output format, yeah. So you can get either, so by default, it's going to be text, like you did for your profile name. Actually, if you go back to the DOM of the website, the profile name, there's like H1, and inside the H1, there's another div, I think.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to scroll up there. Yeah, it's H1, and then there's a span inside of there.
Yeah.
So if we change that to HTML, we could see how that looks.
Yeah, so you have to turn it back to an object. Yeah. So you actually seems to know how to use this better than me. And I think it's going to be output.
I know JavaScript.
Output HTML, and you should get everything.
Oh, so it's not type, it's output.
Yeah.
Output. Okay, so we'll do that, but we want to do some more things because it takes some time to run this. And it costs me credits every time I run it.
We're going to, you know what?
I'm just kidding.
The solution.
I'm just kidding. But just so people know, like, this is you get 1,000 credits, I think, for free, and then you have to start like paying for runs.
Exactly.
But so because with webinars, I don't only want the title. I want the link, and then I want the title. Well, I guess just the link and the title is good enough for now. And then I could next stream, I could try to extract the images on my own. So we want the titles, as I said, and the link. So we need to have a little look at the DOM structure. So I think this will be interesting for Sam, because we have to then go into our DOM here, and we see, okay, this is the event tile, but that's not an 8. So here's my link, and it's called an event tile content wrap. And then I also want the event title, but this is like the whole thing. So you told me before the stream you don't remember exactly how to do all these extraction rules. So let's go and have a look at the documentation.
So
because what I want because I want kind of in the same object, I want the link and I want the title.
So what's cool is that in the output, I think you can put back, you can reuse another selector object. So
like this one.
yeah, exactly. So here on your rules, extraction rules, if we go on your editor, so all webinars, here type exactly. And so
let's just do this one. We'll keep the other one and then we'll remove that in the end. So we need a selector that is kind of surrounds all of the other stuff that we need. And I think I found that because that would be this event section event, or is that all of them? This one, event title, and then tile. I mean, like a tile, like a little tile you have in your bathroom, so or kitchen, I guess, in some countries. Okay, and we want that to be a list because we want all of them.
Yeah, and output, and here you can.
We'll use this title that we already got, and we want that to be a link. Oh, so we don't need this one at all. Well, that's the title. And then, oh, here's an example for a link. I mean, when documentation, I don't have to code. I just have to copy from the documentation. That makes me happy. So that was the link. No, so the link, that was the title that we got from before. So now we have to find the link.
Yeah, so we need a selector for the link.
Could we just select the A instead of this weird event tile content wrap? That feels like it's going to change.
Yeah,
so if I just do the A.
It looks like there's looks like it's the first A anyway.
Yeah.
So and output, and here it's not going. Is it the href? Like.
Yes, the href.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
We could also do the ng href.
Yeah. That's what.
We'll just do.
Yeah. Let's do href.
Yeah.
Way simpler.
So it's the href. And then we don't need a description because there's no description. Maybe we can get the date while we're just at it. Let's see. Where's our date? Info.
Yeah. Even
event title.
Yeah. Awesome.
Look at that. It has like comments, and I don't know what we're going to see in that because how can a date have that many classes? Okay. We're going to go back.
We'll see. It's going to be the surprise.
Yeah. There, and then let's call that date or like info then, since it was called info. Okay, let's run. Okay, we need to remove this L. I guess we can't have the same one twice.
Let's hope for the best.
I'm ready with my question.
Okay.
So before you pivoted to ScrapingBee, are here you and your co-founder were real pirates?
What do you mean? Like, do you mean pricing bot, like the because it was a bot that failed and went down to the sea as the company completely tanked? Is that what you're referring to?
I think I was feeding him the information that like being a pricing bot is kind of piratey.
Yeah. So okay, in that sense, which also works, but pricing bot was our first ship, the first SaaS we shipped, and it ended up badly. But that was fun. It was the first time we had paying customers. The first time we went full time on our own. You know, like we did it like grown-ups. Like we quit our job, we incorporated, we had a pro account on AWS, whatever, blah blah blah, and it was very interesting. Even if it completely failed, we learned a lot. Yeah.
But you're still alive.
Yeah, we are. Hopefully,
that's what being a pirate is all about. You know, because if you're a pirate, you don't have to win the war. You just have to not die.
Yeah. So in that sense, we succeed as we didn't die. But it was not thanks to PricingBot. But when we built PricingBot, we were using a web scraping API, and that's where we got the idea for ScrapingBee.
So you were using someone that's now your competitor then, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
So you realize that this is a business.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We were using that product, and we thought that product is cool, but we could do better, or at
Yes.
least as good. Like the documentation is not cool. The content could be better. So yeah, we thought let's give it a shot, and we ended up working on ScrapingBee.
Cool.
So you didn't think, has it built?
I mean, it built ages ago because ScrapingBee is so fast.
Yeah.
So yes, all webinars, title, link, info. That info was pretty interesting, but we're not going to try to fix that now. So all we have to do to get this to work in kind of the Gatsby sense is to make content nodes out of them. So I can just do that since we've done that on the show many, many times. I can do that in the background while you ask Sam's questions, because he got a new, very interesting question.
The tailwind thing?
Yes.
No. Yes.
Yes.
So I'll read it. A little off-topic question. Frameworks like Tailwind don't have clear, easy classes for CSS. Would data extraction still work here?
So good question. So yes, it would, but it would be a bit trickier for you to come up with the extractor, the selector. But there's something very cool with Chrome. Is like you can left click, like maybe we can show it live, but on Chrome, if you open the DOM of any node, like if you left click here on the DOM, here there's something called selector, I think. Copy.
Do I have this?
Go on the
copy. Oh, copy selector.
Yeah, exactly. And here, and so here you have the CSS selector on your clipboard.
So I didn't know. Look at that. You can get the exact selector all the way down.
Yeah.
So as you can see, the selector is very big because it's not at all trying to make it short, like it's not smart as in thinking, okay, there's only one H1, so we can only reduce the selector to H1, but that can be a way to make it work with a Tailwind.
So I guess you kind of have to be like a little bit of a detective.
Exactly.
Okay.
We call this all webinars.
I'll take out my cheat sheet here then. Yes, Boston. Yeah. You spent some time in Boston.
Exactly. I was working on so it was actually funny because I was working as an intern for a company who hadn't launched yet, which was building a social network for car enthusiasts.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a product. It was an interesting product, honestly, to work on, because as a social network, we had to work on the feed thing, notification thing, and we had a couple of funny features, like people could add their cars, so we had to connect to all those car maker APIs, whatever.
Yeah.
But what was a bit sad was on the business side, my boss, like, he didn't want to launch until the product was supposed to be perfect and ready, like the number one mistake you shouldn't make.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he ever released it, actually. Like, I came back to France 2 weeks later, the product was supposed to be launched, and 2 months after, I think it just shut down. So it was a bit surprising, but very interesting to see all the do's and don'ts of bootstrapping. It was not bootstrap because he raised a bunch of money, but all the do's and don'ts of entrepreneurship, playing live, under your eyes.
But you were a developer.
Mm.
So was there like a team with senior developers and?
Oh, it was a very small team. So it was my boss, one or two other developers that came afterwards, and me.
Yeah.
But actually, when I came on board, he had actually worked with a team of 5 on a V1,
Okay.
but he was not confident enough that the V1 was. He was not confident that the V1 was good enough to launch it. So I worked on the V2. And we also had another person working on the marketing side of things, shooting a very high quality car videos in LA and stuff. And so it was a small 5 people team.
Okay. I was an intern in Boston too.
Oh, cool. What did you do there?
It's I didn't understand anything of what they were actually building, but I like you. I learned a lot. A lot, and I was an intern there for 3 months, and I learned so much because these guys I learned a lot about how to do business basically, and and it's interesting because Boston it's quite big actually with innovation and entrepreneurship, and there's so many people doing it there, and my guys, they were so laid back about the whole thing, and then potential customers would come to them and they would just turn them down. Like this guy,
maybe a little too much laid back.
They were only.
I think they did pretty well.
They did great. They were only looking for really interesting projects, for them. They wanted it to be cool to work on for them and do stuff that nobody else had done before.
Was it kind of an agency or something?
So there were 2 partners, one developer and one architect. And he was
like a software architect or a real architect?
Like old school architect.
Brick and mortar architect.
In a way, but he was at the Harvard School of Design lecturing. He was a professor there lecturing a human-machine interaction. So he was very high tech in his work, and he had a name. He had a big name. So when I walked around Boston, talking to people, and they were like, "Okay, you're an intern. So where are you?" "I'm in Alan Sayeg," and they were like, "Oh, really?"
Okay, yeah.
So that was really cool.
Quite a big name.
And then they asked me, "So what are they actually doing?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." So they were basically building interactive rooms.
Okay.
That was kind of what they loved to do, but they only could do it for museums, they only wanted to do it for museums. So they took high-paying projects to kind of fund the low-paying museum work. Yeah. Well, that was great. I loved Boston. It was good, and I went to you.
And then you met me there.
I met.
Yeah, I did. Most important.
I did actually. I did. But you. So what did you like best about Boston then, Pierre?
Me. So yeah. I think it was a very cool city, like walkable city too.
Yes.
I liked going, close to the Charles River. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the name of the river. On the bay, I liked that it was not that far from New York. So that was actually the first time I went to New York was when I was in Boston.
Yeah.
It was also close to Canada. It was a city where it was nice to live in. Like,
did you go to Canada?
Yeah. Actually, it was funny. I had a friend there, and that friend was Etienne. And Etienne is today our lead engineer at ScrapingBee. But yeah, he was there when I was in Boston, so I came to visit him.
So you went to Canada, you met him, but you already knew him?
Yeah. I knew him from So basically, Kevin and Etienne, I've known them for the last, I don't know, 15 years. Like we were in high school together. And
Yeah.
when we did all our study in Toulouse together also. And then we ended up in Paris. So
Okay.
yeah, we kind of followed each other without, it was not intended, but
Yeah.
that's just how things went.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's
yeah.
great. That's great. But you
Okay. It
Yeah.
works.
Yes.
Wow, good news.
I mean, this is the time where things have been building so fast that we haven't really I've been waiting for the conversation to. No, it's perfect. So what I've done is I took our list of webinars and I looped through them, and for each webinar I've created a node in Gatsby using create node. I create an ID using create node ID, and the only thing I need to supply then is something unique in my universe or in like Crowdcast universe. So I use the link because it's going to be unique for each webinar. Then we add the title, and then we add the link. And since the links were relative, I added on the Crowdcast domain.
Yeah.
And then we call it. And I think we need to do some cleanup because it's like, UTM medium profile web. We don't want to have that, but I'll leave that for another day. And then we have internal, which is like Gatsby's internal information, which is what type it is. I called it a Crowdcast webinar. And then the media type is is supposed to describe whatever is inside content. So that's JSON. And then it's the content digest, which we use create content digest, and we just give it everything we scraped into there. So if that changes, this node gets created new. But if we run this again and again now, it will not create the node again. It will call ScrapingBee again and again, but it will not create nodes for the webinars that haven't changed. It will only create nodes for webinars that have changed, and then nothing more will be done on that node. So it's part of Gatsby's kind of content layer and its internal caching system.
But no
that's
thumbnail.
What they did. No, we're not going to try to do thumbnail today because I had a sneak peek, and it's actually not an image. It's a background style that is set. So I think we can grab that style and then regex out some URLs, but we are at the hour. So maybe we'll do that next week, because then we get to do Gatsby image CDN, which is, stuff we like to repeat. And just to show everyone, so if I do a query on the data layer, all Crowdcast webinars, I get all of the webinars with the title and the link just as we created them.
Oh yeah.
Boom.
Yep.
Amazing.
I mean, this, I just have to say, this product is just so nice to work with.
Thank you.
It's I don't know, it blows my mind how nice it is to work with, and how I can just copy paste the code from the documentation, boom, right in, and with the API key, everything it just works. I think, it should work like that. Yes, it does. Oh, good.
Thank you. And it's funny you said that, because I know as a developer myself that we just like to copy paste snippets. And we just copy the snippet, paste it, and try to tweak it so it works the way we want it to work. And so the whole documentation was made with that in mind, small snippets everywhere that you can copy paste and tweak so it fits your needs. So yeah, glad to see that it worked.
It's funny that we all know that none of us read the documentation first.
Yeah,
we all just I'm so good at this, I'll just copy this and figure it out. So I think the only thing is for the data extraction, it could be nice to have that wait for in there in the snippet, because I think that's a common use case that you have to and then maybe with a comment you could have a comment that says that you will not need this if you're not turning on JavaScript. Or
I'm actually going to add it right now to our backlog of things, because that's a good point.
You're not the first one that's been on the show adding backlog items.
Yeah.
I love it when that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause then I feel this is useful for you as well.
Yeah, totally. Like it was very fun, and it's something I never did. Like to see an engineer, a developer work live on our documentation. So
Mhm.
we cheated a bit here because we talked before about it. You had some
Mhm.
question, but it was really interesting to see that you like to copy paste a snippet, but on the other hand, yeah, the weight thing was not that
Mhm.
clear. It was also not that clear that you were looking at the data extraction documentation, which was different than the main API documentation. I can see
Mhm.
that we could maybe clear things up here. So
Mm.
yeah, definitely a very cool experience for me.
Yeah, good. And I think
Maybe
Sam
we
has a
should
last
go on
question.
more podcasts.
Well, then, like most podcasts, you just talk about how an amazing success it's been. I think, not see
More
people
live
live
coding.
code. Yeah, live code the go on more streams and see people
Oh,
wrangle
man.
with the.
I think Sam has a question here.
Yeah,
Oops.
reading it now. I think.
No, it's too long.
I think we can have a little bit of look at the code because I think the question is, so what kind of error handling would we want to do around this axis? Because I guess this is a super nice, I mean, it returns a 200, everything is working
Yeah.
fine. So what kind of errors will you give me? Say crowdcast.io dot or /Raae is not a good address. If I just try to like make something really bad
Yeah,
here, we could see what
sure.
happens.
So there is going to be the classic 500 if something goes wrong. 404 if you're trying to request a page that does not exist. Basically, so this, in terms of the data extraction, we're not going to send you an error if you're trying to extract an item that's not here.
Okay.
We've made that design choice because sometimes the DOM change. Sometimes you want to run data extraction rules on different pages that don't have the element you're trying to extract every single time,
Mhm.
So maybe you have some data validation to do on your end if you want every single time to have title, date, list,
Yeah.
length, whatever. So yeah, and then the classic 429 if you're getting ahead of your concurrency, 401 if you're passing wrong credentials, and a few more. But it's all in the documentation.
Yeah, so in our JavaScript code, then we would set a try catch around anything. So axis get will, if it gets something that is not in the 200 range, it will throw an error, and then we can catch the error.
Okay, yeah.
And
And
then I wrote reporter wrong. Well, see, this is when we're at that stage where I shouldn't be coding anymore. Like after an hour, every time I try to YOLO stream at the hour, there's like another hour goes by. Oh, you're not seeing my code because I'm like talking about. I'm talking about. There we go. Yeah, so I added a try catch, and then we can give the error message out. So now I like botched. So if I botch this address, I know this address that I have now, I saw that it gave me 500. But what you're saying is that if I add in a selector that is that comes back empty, that will still give me an OK 200.
Yeah, exactly. And it will fill all the other selector you passed.
Okay, so it's it tries its best.
Yeah, exactly. It tries its best.
Which is good. I was going to YOLO code some. Don't YOLO code Benedict. I just don't do it. I'm not going to do it. But we can find that in the documentation. So that would be in the HTML API.
Yeah, all the way to the end, you have the return code, I think.
There we go.
Yeah.
Successful, incorrect parameters, upgrade your plan, valid URL, request a smaller file, please upgrade your plan, please retry. Yeah. The good ones.
So his follow-up here is good also. Check what's return matches the schema you expect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that is a really good question, because I should have, like, after I get my data here, I should actually do a schema validation on the data coming back. And if that is errors out, I should not be creating these webinars, or at least do some, maybe even like notify myself on Slack that this is broken.
Yeah, and there's probably, I know there are in Python, like a couple of libraries you can use. Like you say, I want a JSON with this key string, this key integer in a range between 1 and 10, whatever. And you can then really easily check that the JSON you're receiving match a particular schema. That's actually how we validate the data extraction rules you send to us. So
yeah, you use the schema. So I usually use a Joy for the schema validation when I'm in Gatsby land, because Gatsby uses Joy to validate the plugin option schemas. So you're already using Joy for that when you're doing Java stuff. So I've just continued using Joy for kind of other things.
Gatsby as something built in. Okay.
Yeah, it's
cool.
a node. It's I don't think it's Gatsby's, it's a node package, but they're using Joy, so I just decided to keep on using that, so I don't have to learn multiple packages of of validation. So I just used that Joy one. But there are others as well for JavaScript. Yeah, I think we're gonna do a summary, and we're off to the races.
And also,
yes.
Pierre, do you have like a link to a website or something that you want people to look at and do something?
Maybe www.scrapingbee.com.
Yes!
Woo! What a surprising plug.
That's good.
No, like, I think our blog, if you want to learn about web scraping, we have lots of tutorials, and we're trying our best to not stuff scraping bee down your throat when you're reading it. So, like, you can actually learn web scraping without having to use scraping bee at all, without having to take a paid plan or anything. And so if you're a beginner or not a beginner and just want to learn more about web scraping in your favorite language, we put a lot of care writing those tutorials. So, yeah, I think you could check them out. And again, it's like quite educational. Like, it's not an ad.
I concur.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's a good blog. Okay. Is there anything else on the agenda, Ola?
No.
Because I think we're running out of time. So let's do our summary, our Tinkerbell summary. I'm going to hide the comment there. So what did we do? No. Yes, it's what first. Is it why or what? See, I never, like, I would do this every week. So what, of course, is what first. So the what, we scraped this page for all my webinars so that I can get them into my Gatsby data layer, so that I later can show them on my web page without having to copy paste the data. And we need to do it this way because there is no official API. I guess that was the why. I did the why. And then we'll do the how. And then I see the Pirate Princess is getting ready for the outro. So we headed on over to the ScrapingBee documentation and copy pasted most of this. So we do a call to the ScrapingBee API with our API key and then the URL of the page that we want to scrape. And then we write these extract rules telling ScrapingBee what we want to get back. And super cool, you could kind of use you can use CSS selectors. So I guess we don't really need that name. We just did that for an example. So I say I want something called all webinars, and I want that to pick from event tile. That was the div surrounding the whole event. And we want that to be a list. We want all of them. And then from that, inside of that, we want to get the title from the event tile title CSS selector. For the link, we just went with the A tag. And then we say, okay, we don't want what's inside of the A tag. We actually want what's inside of the href attribute on the A tag. So we use this little @href. And then we also added the info that I'm just going to remove again because we're not going to use that. It was weird. Okay. But to make sure that all the data has loaded before ScrapingBee starts looking for its information, we said it should wait for profile name, but I guess we could wait for event tile now, but it seems like all the data kind of comes at the same time. So I'm just going to keep it like that. And with all our data fetched from ScrapingBee, look how nice that is. That is very little code. We live through the webinars and we create a Gatsby content node for each webinar so that we can later query for it. Maybe it's still running. Did I close it down? So that we can query for it. Oh, did I close it down? Where are they? Oh yeah, I messed it up when I was YOLO coding. But so that we can query for it in our graphical explorer and then later on our page. Boom!
Drop mic. Drop the mic.
Drop mic.
Yes.
I need that. Boom!
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make you guys big again. Let's see. There we go.
Ok, du klar? 1, 2, 3. Du må ta hodet opp så du kan se. Kom igjen. Sånn da. This has been another unknown rise and rum-fueled treasure hunt in the sharky waters around the Gatsby Islands with Queen Raae.
Gorgeous hair!
I'm your host, Captain Uravea. Today's guest has been the great and powerful Pierre de Wolf. See you next Thursday. La la la.
Good one! And we all wave. It's ending.